A-R-A, nay. It's your girl. Hey, how we doing? How we doing? So we doing something a little bit different today, and I kind of just want to do it this way because um, I want to get in the practice of like really getting up and speaking. You know, a lot of times you might see me in my car, or you might see me in the park or something like that, but I want to practice actually getting up and speaking. And eventually I'm going to be teaching. So I'm in the library, and the library has these different study rooms where I can get in here and use a whiteboard. So today is still gonna be like a normal sort of conversation like I typically have, but just with a little twist today. Okay, so again, it's your girl Tia Renee, and as the title suggests, we're talking about creativity, but not in a normal traditional sense. We're talking about creativity in your being, because as a child of God or a creation of God, you are naturally creative, even if you're not physically putting out and putting out and putting out and putting out. Okay? So I'm just writing on here creativity. So, how do we generally talk about creativity? We're typically talking about creativity as putting out an art, let's say. So we're talking about writing, we're talking about painting, we're talking about acting, we're talking about anything like that, right? But creativity is not always something where we're putting out and putting out. And I wrote a blog on this maybe about a month ago, could be more, could be less, because I found that at a certain point in my life that I wasn't as creative in the traditional sense that I once was. At one point, I considered myself a writer, in which I do still write. As I just mentioned, I write a blog, and eventually I would like to write books. I have several book ideas. But in many parts of my life, I felt like I was kind of losing my creativity because the sparks weren't just coming like they was at one point. At one point, I was able to come up with a whole short book idea, and then just write. And over time, I just didn't have that same creativity in that sense. So I really had to realize and sit with myself like, okay, am I just not creative anymore? Or is the spark just gone? Am I ever gonna create anything ever again? And eventually I was like, you know what? Creativity is not just how I output the work that I do, how I hustle into it, especially if it's naturally just not there at that point. I had to realize creativity is already in my being. Okay? So creativity is how I dress, how I wear my hair, how what shoes I wear, or however I talk and express myself is creative. In my life right now, I have to be extremely creative with my circumstance, okay? I'm living in much smaller quarters. I don't have as many things as I once have. I had to get rid of a lot of things. And I have to be creative in how I move from day to day. So while I might not be writing every day or producing every day, I am starting to get more on YouTube a little bit more. That's creative. Again, I just got on here and just say, hey, I'm not really formally teaching a class, but let me get up and just treat it like I'm teaching a class, right? That's creativity. It doesn't always require output, output, output. Hello, thank you for everybody that's in the live with me today. So, if you ever been like me and ever felt like, man, am I losing my spark? Am I losing my creativity? Think about the little things that you do every day that's a part of your natural being. Like, one thing we like to talk about is how, excuse me, it's about how we look at somebody, for example, when we see they have their own little natural style to them, right? That's creativity. They got up and decided, I'm going to put this on today. Today, me, I just like to be comfortable. So you can call it creativity, but me, I prefer to be comfortable. That's just my natural artistic expression, if you will. That's just my natural creativity because that's just how I'm wired. That's just how I am. That's my being. That's how I create. Okay? So you kind of just have to realize that who you are, you're already creation. What do they say? God created the world, right? God created you. God created everything around you. Everything was an idea first. Ideas are very creative. Okay? So if you resonate with that at all or want to know more about that, go ahead and check out my blog. It is tabooish.wordpress.com. I think you'll find some interesting stuff on there. If you're somebody who has kind of like different radical ideas or kind of out there ideas or look at things a little differently from society and the people around you, I think it would be a blog you really enjoy. I talk about things like kind of like societal ideas, and there go, excuse me, I don't know what that word is I just said. I'm talking a little too fast here. Just things that are a little bit more radical than the average person. So I know I started my journey of talking about how I don't resonate with the regular 9 to 5 life. You know, I found that more creative work or work that allowed me to do my thing on my own time fits me. And that's something that I'm still exploring as a more creative person, as somebody who doesn't do things traditionally or think traditionally. I have to get creative in those ways a lot in my life. So while I might not be always putting things out on YouTube every day, writing every day, painting, have thousands of books published, yet I still have to exercise my creativity in other ways, in little ways. And that's okay. So that was my little spiel for today. Thank you to everybody who joined. Again, definitely check out my website, tabooish.wordpress.com, for any more insight on kind of how I think and navigate the world when it comes to doing things a little bit different than the norm. If you're one of those people, I think you'll really enjoy it. Thank you again. Peace and love to you.